I mentioned both players from Louisiana area know each other quite well. Now, Jody's deck does have 3 main deck copies of Fairy Macabre. I assume they're good here.
Yeah, that's just a fine card to draw in this matchup. Even when you're not casting Living End. Just, oh, you had a Flamewake Phoenix and a Bloodghast. Well, forget about that.
This double Cremate is just a good enough card.
I don't even care that it doesn't replace itself.
Replaces itself by exiling a second card.
Right.
There we go.
It'll come back as a 2/2, I guess.
All right. Cycle of Horror of the Broken Lands for Jody Keith. So if you haven't seen this deck in a while, Amonkhet really gave it a shot in the arm. It's why it's crept its way back up into Modern.
Yeah, there's access to more things that cycle for 1 mana.
Right, so we have Horror of the Broken Lands. They now play 4 copies of Archfiend of Ifnir, which we might see at one point as well. Other than that, no big additions. But just having 2 cards for a deck that's as strange as this, getting 2 new cards is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. He's also playing Desert Ceradon.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, so we have that one.
The Crawworm. I guess it doesn't. Yeah, it just cycles for 1 mana. It doesn't trample.
Gone are the days of Jungle Weaver.
Yes.
And
I think
Deadshot Minotaur.
I've seen lists with Pale Recluse.
All right, I like that one.
Just some real gross stuff. But yeah, the more your deck trends toward doing things for 1 mana, obviously the better it's going to be.
So Aaron on turn 2, one of the things that I want to see his deck do is dump cards into it. If he can get creatures into his graveyard himself, he stops Jody from casting a Living End. This is a strategy I'll oftentimes see when I play like a Scapeshift deck. If I can somehow get a Primeval Titan into the graveyard, then or just multiple Sakura Tribe Elders, suddenly there's a lot of value against the Living End deck.
Yep. Yeah, you can definitely engineer situations where it works out in your favor. The Living End deck, quite a bit better at doing that.
Sure. Flamewake Phoenix, Arid Mesa, and Lightning Bolt put into the graveyard from Aaron. That was off of Goblin Lore, and now he has a 0-mana hollow one. Jody will cycle Archfiend of Ifnir. Demonic Dread is in Jody's hand, so with a 3rd land, he now has the option to fire off a Living End.
He's been hanging on to a Simian Spirit Guide as well. You might see him, if he has a land, cycle another creature, Demonic Dread, targeting that hollow one, Living End, Barich left with a Flamewake Phoenix, Jody just getting 3 creatures that'll close the game in very short order.
Right, so Jody would get... So he could get because he could cycle and then Dread?
Right.
Yeah, so then the question would be whether or not this so you get Archfiend of Ifnir and Horror of the Broken Lands. So this Archfiend, the question would be, is this enough to win? It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a fine starting point. The deck also plays Street Race. If you had another Cycler, I think it's pretty well greenlit to go for it on that turn. Without a 3rd creature, I think it does make enough sense to wait on this. There is a concern that Barich's graveyard could just get a lot better.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So, Jody says go. Aaron on his turn goes to combat. Tries to bring back Flamewake Phoenix, but here's Fairy Macabre. That's going to exile away the Phoenix and a Lightning Bolt. And this, to me, makes sense as to why you might want to wait on Demonic Dread.
Yeah, that's certainly going to make the Living End better. Get that creature out of Barich's graveyard, put one into yours.
And Aaron, Faithless Looting, going to try to get some more creatures into his graveyard. Draws Burning Inquiry, Bloodghast. He's got a lot of Burning Inquiries here.
Yes.
Which, I don't know. He's going to discard, it looks like at least 1 Bloodghast, maybe 2. Yeah, 2. He's going to try to bring back both. Do you want to cast Burning Inquiry against Living End? Is that a good thing to do?
The deck is pretty flush with 3-mana Cascade spells. Also, Jody missed his 3rd land drop.
Yeah.
The Inquiry might draw him into being able to Cascade into Living End, which would be the concern.
Well, Jody had the 3rd land here, and he cycled a 2nd Archfiend. At this point, with 2 Archfiends in the graveyard, I'm pretty interested in casting a Living End.
Yeah, Living End looks very powerful in this position.
Yeah, and Jody agrees. Demonic Dread will be the card. It does nothing that matters here. That's not the point. The point is that it cascades into Living End. So all creatures in play go into the graveyards. Then all the creatures in the graveyards go into play. For a moment there, something couldn't block. That doesn't matter. And all those cards into play. It's Horror of the Broken Lands, Fairy Macabre, and 2 Archfiends of Ifnir for Jody. Any card he cycles now puts 2 -1/-1 counters on all of Aaron's creatures.
Yeah, as it stands, this is just a lethal attack. Ton of power entering the battlefield, and pretty full grip from here. Not hard to cycle and just Plague Wind whatever Barich is able to present.
So even something like a post-combat Flamewake Phoenix to block is unlikely going to to be able to block. I think Jody wins on the next attack.
Yeah, double Archfiend means just one cycle deals with the Phoenix. Barich just has those 2 blood gas. Jody at 16, that's not going to do enough.
Yeah.
Thinking about what he can do, maybe casting some of these burning inquiries, putting up a hollow one that's more likely to be able to block, but even just cycling 2 cards is not a big ask for the Living End deck.
Yeah, and even then it keeps him alive for a turn, but I don't know where we go from there. There's still 12 power in the air. Aaron brings back both these Bloodghasts.
Okay, here's a sizable blocker looking at Gurmag Angler.
All right. Good board for Aaron, but the fact that the air is not covered still matters.
And that Gurmag Angler is just going to end up one cycling card because of both the Archfiends.
Horror of the Broken Lands will get big. Yeah,
the Horror doesn't really care about that.
Jody has a card to cycle. Then this attack's great. Even without a card to cycle, it's pretty good.
Especially after missing a land drop, the odds that Jody can cycle nothing are extremely low.
And it's going to be very macabre, exiling Aaron's graveyard. Aaron, and then he'll cast Violent Outburst, actually just to pump his flyers.
Sure.
You see all those signs, it's like, that's not how I normally use the card, but it's going to get you.
Comes up.
Sure.
Good one to know about.
Game 1 goes to Jody Keith. And with that, we'll look at the sideboards. You mentioned both players with 3 copies of Leyline of the Void. Yes to both.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some of the other cards, though. For Jody, 4 copies of Dead Gone could be relevant. Gone on a hollow one's not terrible. 4 Fulminator Mages, 3 Ingot Chewers. Those answer hollow ones. And then a Slaughter Games.
Yeah, Dead Gone seems pretty reasonable. Some of the games you're going to lose involve getting run over by
Flameblade
Adept, right? So it's an answer to that. Doesn't mess up your cascades. I don't mind Ingot Chewer, but I also don't love it. It's an answer to Hollow One exactly, which is probably not good enough.
That is the only target, yeah.
Maybe 1.
Is there a danger? I guess these ley lines are certainly in. There's worry about overboarding here.
Yeah, you still want to maintain a high volume of cycling things that enable what you're doing. You also probably want to keep these Fairy Macabres available. I think these 3 Beast Within in the main deck, those are pretty easy to board out in a matchup like this.
Is there, when you board in Leyline of the Void, do you have to board out Fairy Macabre, or is it you just want so much of that effect?
I think you're pretty happy being heavy on that effect. You don't always have ley lines. You don't necessarily need to mulligan into them in this matchup. He saw that Game 1, Jody just was able to engineer a battlefield where the Living End was much better for him than it is for Barich, and most of the games, I believe, are going to play out that way.
So in Aaron's sideboard, Living End's actually a deck that's reasonably hard to sideboard against because most cards don't interact with them.
Yes.
He has 3 Fatal Push, 3 Grim Lavamancer. We already said we like the ley lines, and they're great. 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Engineered Explosives, and 2 Thoughtseize.
Outside of the ley line, the only other card I'm looking at is going to be these 2 Thoughtseize. You won't always be able to disrupt the Living End deck, but there's enough games, if Jody's on 1 Cascade spell, that usually means that he's also cycling a lot. So you want to be able to hit that 1 Cascade spell. It won't always work out that way, but you give yourself game in some of these games.
Yeah, it's actually, that's what I was thinking. It's a high variance Thoughtseize.
Right.
Because outside of hitting the Cascade spells, which I want to hit, every other card is really bad to Thoughtseize.
Right. And he is adding to these 2 main deck Collector Brutalities, so this is more potential looks at a Cascade spell before Jody is able to leverage it. So I do like that one a good amount.
And after watching the first game, Jody does seem to be ahead in this matchup.
Yes.
I guess a lot of times where Living End is good in a meta, it's very good against creature decks. And Hollow One at the end of the day is just a deck that's attacking. It is mostly just creatures.
Yeah, the only creature decks that I've generally been happy with my Living End matchup were decks that also had counter spells.
Yeah, counterspell's fantastic against Living End.
Right. Discard spells, they can do the trick. The Living End deck just has a ton of redraws. Just cycling your creatures means you get a lot of looks to find the Cascade spell in time. In Hollow One, it's a fast deck, but it's very rarely going to close the game as early as turn 3 or turn 4. So the Living End deck's generally going to have time to find a Cascade spell to set up a Living End.
Fine, keep an eye on this bingo card. This is going to be the week. Player has pregame effects is on my card. This prime time. Got a good chance here for that. Looking at that one.
My board's pretty bad this weekend.
I'm going to go. I got card with landfall played. We had Bloodghast.
I have a hexproof creature with power 5 or more, which is more of a standard square right now.
Vine Mare.
Boom. I would be very happy to have that square in standard.
Someone casts Vine Mare.
What
Just got it.
Stupid card.
Yeah.
What a dumb design.
I thought hexproof plus unblockable on large creatures was okay. That sounds how fun.
Right. Just the number 5 on that card is offensive.
What bothers me is that it can be essence scattered.
Yeah. It really needed to be uncounterable.
I thought so.
And it also needed to enter the battlefield if it were to be discarded as a replacement
Sure, like
effect.
the Quagnoth ability.
Yeah. It needed some of that. It needed to be more like a Loxodon Smiter.
That's fun. Do you have any squares yet?
I have one.
I'm just going to rub it in all weekend because and then I'm going to be disappointed when you win anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Just makes your defeat all the sweeter.
You had a card transform. We had Jeff Hoagland helped you out. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Not only once but twice I'm going to check off player has into pregame effects because they both have Ley Lines of the Void.
All
They have different ones. See, Aaron has a Guild Pact one, whereas Jody has a Core Set one.
Guildback clearly superior, but
I prefer the art. I agree style-wise. I actually prefer the art on the M11 one, but I mean you should go with the older one. It's just the stronger play.
original art, not in a core set.
Right.
A lot to like about the Guildpack version.
And so now we'll get a weird game where neither of these graveyard decks have a graveyard.
Yes.
I don't think Jody has a way to knock a Leyline off the table.
If you left in Beast Within.
Ugh. I guess it's pretty stock right now for Hollow One decks to be playing Leyline of the Void.
Yes.
So maybe Jody kept in Beast Withins.
And here's a good start.
Flameblade Adept for Aaron. Jody has drawn... we'll see. Lands are good here, actually.
Yeah. Jody's deck, not going to be very good at casting the creature spells. They're mostly there to be cycled. He does still get the ability to cascade into Living End and use it as a Plague Wind or Wrath of God sort of effect.
Sure. Flameblade Adept attacks, and Bloodghast is the play from Aaron. No third land.
This is looking like a pretty good draft deck. We got a 2-1 and a 1-2 with Menace.
That's like not even a good draft deck. It's fine. This Leyline's pretty bad in my draft deck.
Yeah. You want to play your rares.
That's true. These are the ones I open.
I opened this card. It's worth $15. What did you open?
Two shock lands.
That's a good value pool. There's Verdant Catacombs. That's worth more than Wooded Foothills.
Another Leyline of the Void in Jody's hand. He has a Guild Pact one in hand.
Ooh, I like the spread. And one thing about the ley lines, Barich's redundant ley lines are much better than Jody's.
They can be Goblin Lord.
Faithless Looting, Goblin Lore. Now, Burning Inquiry is going to be a null factor. That can hit either player's ley lines. Barich has more effects that make his redundant ley lines less bad, though.
Decision time for Aaron. His hand has two Faithless Lootings. Flamewake Phoenix, Goblin Lore, Hollow One.
You don't want to accidentally discard the Phoenix. You want to be
Right.
able to cast that one. For that reason, you see Barich going with the Faithless Looting.
No help there. Finds him another Faithless Looting and a Lightning Bolt. I guess he can discard 2 cards, and then he discards 2 more Faithless Lootings. So the Adept's a 3-2. Bloodghast a 2-1. So swings for 5 puts Jody to 13, and we should see a Hollow One here.
Yeah, Faithless Looting is just card disadvantage in the matchup. And because he discarded the Faithless Lootings and has the Goblin Lore left over, there's no guarantee he can make the Hollow One later. You don't necessarily want to commit it into a Living End, though. That's just going to Wrath of God, take care of all of Barich's creatures. You kind of want to have that left over.
Yeah. How much more damage? If you commit the Hollow One, Jody will certainly make a Living End if possible.
Right.
But he might even do it right now, right? He could Violent Outburst it on end step.
Yeah. It dramatically changes Barich's clock it turns it from just these 3 points a turn into just a 2-turn clock. You'd go up to 7 without having to commit a discard spell to pump the Flameblade Adept. Though exposing yourself to the living end, that's an extremely significant cost. For that reason, you see Barich just hang on here. Ooh, and looks like communication. Jody is going to be casting a Beast Within an end step.
On that ley line, okay. Sounds like we're going to see a living end anyway.
Yeah, we're gearing up and put some creatures into the graveyard. That will be the dramatic impact on the game.
And Jody will cast Simian Spirit Guide as his follow-up.
That one's not so good.
Lightning Bolt drawn for... Is that a bolt for Aaron? Something.
It is a Lightning Bolt, and it's also the second Lightning Bolt he's produced.
Okay, now we're getting interesting.
So the way the attacks currently stand, the Bloodghast probably going to be blocked by the Simian Spirit Guide, so 4 would come across here. He's looking at starting with the Goblin Lore, though. This is a guaranteed window for that to be good for 3 damage.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3 draws.
Ooh, there's another Lightning Bolt. He wants to not discard all 3 Lightning Bolts. He would love to keep at least 2 Lightning Bolts here.
You know, I was going to note that Aaron's the kind of person when he casts Goblin Lore who looks at the cards before discarding them. But of course he is. That's just...
You want to feel something.
Yeah.
And 1 bolt was discarded, but there's 2 left over.
See if he bolts away that blocker, and he will. Goodbye, Spirit Guide. A swing for 3, 4, 5, 9. Jody's down to 3. Aaron has a Lightning Bolt, I think, in his hand. Not too bad, then.
Easy peasy.
Demonic Dread. Sure. Aaron, yeah, Living End doesn't gain life as a deck, so this should be good for Barich.
I've played against Brindle Boars. Living End.
Okay.
Jody not bringing that one.
Oh, you know what I'm realizing, Ryan? New rules changed. Dead Gone. You couldn't...
It's a 4 CMC for cascading.
That's new. It used to not be a card you could play in the sideboard, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's a pretty big update with the way the rules changed. It's a nice technology against things like Gurmag Angler.
Yeah. It used to be a cascade. It was a 1 and a 3, so you could cascade into it. But now the rules change happened. It is a 4.
Yep.
And Aaron says, by the way, I have the bolt. Let's go to game 3.
And you wanted to do that. You know, you don't just show him Lightning Bolt. You get to see more of the sideboard configuration this way.
Yeah. I mean, Jody actually cascaded through about 30 cards to find that living end. Aaron got a lot of information by waiting. I don't think that's a slow roll at all.
Right. Yeah, that's just correct. So now he knows about those Dead Gons. In general, those Dead Gons, if Jody doesn't have a ley line, that can just put a Flameblade Adept that could theoretically be a factor in the game post-Living End.
Yeah, I mean, look at that Flameblade Adept from Aaron. It attacked for 1, then 3, then 4. So it was an 8-point burn spell for 1. It makes a lot of sense that Jody has those Dead Gons in.
Yes.
Now that both players know that there's living ends on the other side, I guess we saw Beast Within from Jody, so yeah, he knew. I suppose Aaron doesn't really re-sideboard here at all, does he?
No, you still want those ley lines. There's not a lot else. And on the draw, the Thoughtseizes, there's an argument that they get a little bit worse. More so the Collective Brutalities in the main deck do a little bit worse. But you do have to fight on these axes. And the Brutality is also just more reach. He's trying to get in some early chip shots. And then it can get really difficult to actually close the game in combat. But Lightning Bolts and Brutality clean that up a little bit.
Time is running out to get your playing with Fire, Pin, and Token, but it is still possible here as we reach the end of July. You can do that by going to StarCityGames.com Game Night. These are tournaments held at stores all around the country where exclusive prizes are given away by Star City Games. So you can get that one in July before we switch over next month to the Order of the First Cheese, the 2/2 Knight Ally. See here, you can win that one starting mid next week. And if your store signs up, we can still get you signed up in time for September, which is at Garden Tendencies. It's our Westvale Abbey Panda token. So you can get all of these to sign up as a store or find a game night near you. StarCityGames.com/game night.
I want to get my hands on some of these Garden Tendencies. It's really spooky art.
Yeah, the pandas. There's like this happiness meter where things that are happy and cute get more enjoyable up into a point, and then if they get even happier, it gets creepy. I don't know if there's a term for this, but I'm
sure there is.
Yeah, it's like like Uncanny Valley, but in reverse.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many people with liberal arts degrees. Somebody took an interest in this concept.
I'm sure.
Somebody had this thought before you did.
Yeah, it's like
Read some books.
Cute is good to a point, and then when it gets past that, then it's not cute anymore. It's just creepy.
I don't know if it's an essay that was published on Reddit, an actual scholarly article in a journal, but somebody has coined a term for this concept.
Okay. I'm sure the internet knows.
The internet knows. They know everything.
That panda's has gone past the peak of the graph for me here.
Somebody show me in graph form how I should feel about this panda. The world needs more graphs to illustrate how people are supposed to feel about things.
Oh man, I agree with that sentence so hard. It's like you're saying it like it's a joke, but I'm just kind of with you, okay?
The reason it is a joke is because I know you believe that.
Yeah. Like, sure, let me work on some data visualization for you.
I think I like this, but nobody mathematically proved to me that I'm allowed to like it.
I mean, I think I like this, but a graph would really drive home the point that I like it. If I knew the underlying function, that would confirm my emotional suspicions. Game 3 are both players on 7. Just realizing now we have the baby pink sleeve mirror between the two.
Popular in Louisiana, I suppose.
No ley lines either way this time. Jody starts off on Street Wraith. Which means I'm expecting one of them just a top deck a ley line. But
I used to play with pink sleeves a fair amount. They're not opaque.
I was going to say, I did too up until double face cards.
Yeah. I've cast a lot of Delver of Secrets, and at least once, using checklist cards, I lost the actual cards I was playing.
Okay.
And had to go shell out like $10 for a set of them. That's why I don't play checklist cards anymore.
Street Wraith. Street Wraith. Faithless Looting for Aaron. Trying to find some hollow ones. He cycled a lot of cards on this turn. I don't think he found any, though.
Found some good stuff, though. Looks like a Bloodghast and a couple Flame Wake Phoenixes.
All right, that'll do well down the road.
No ley lines this game, so that stuff's all fine.
It's fine. I would be in this matchup. I wonder how much that will get the job done. Once the engine gets going, Jody's deck can be pretty scary. What I do like about Aaron's side, cycling 2 Street Wraiths on the first turn is very good here.
Right. Cycling Street Wraith into Faithless Looting means if you produce a hollow one, you can make it happen, but not a lot happening here.
2 Bloodghasts into the graveyard now?
The Street Wraiths are very good against Living End.
Yeah, that's
Jody
what
has
I mean.
a swamp, so those are good for some damage. You want to be able to get the early chip shots in, though. That is a very important element of the strategy.
Right, so he discards the 2 Bloodghasts. The land drop this turn should give him the ability to chip in. There they both are. He plays it off Bloodstained Mire. He's got Lightning Bolt in hand, Mountain, 2 Flamewake Phoenix. Might even be 2 Lightning Bolts. Knowing Aaron, I wouldn't be surprised if he just double Lava Spikes them.
Yeah, totally reasonable line. Especially if he wants to be casting Burning Inquiries or Goblin Lures on later turns.
And from Jody, still nothing. Aaron draws a 3rd Bloodghast. Eventually, these Bloodghasts should force damage.
And it's got Bloodghast, got some Flamewake Phoenixes in the hand. The reason you don't see him committing more creatures is he wants to make sure he can get some damage in. This is going to make those Lightning Bolts in hand better. This is going to make those chip shots from the Street Wraiths after Living End a lot better.
So Jody takes 4, drops to 14. Aaron, possible turn 3 plays. He has Faithless Looting. He has Flamewake Phoenix.
I like casting some creature post-combat. There is an issue where if your creature you cast is Bloodghast, you don't get to crack this Bloodstained Mire, and he kind of wants to maintain that.
Right.
Because these are lands available, Blood Crypt, Mountain, Bloodstained Mire, he just wants to leave this fetch land up so he can attack with those if they're removed from the battlefield.
Aaron cast nothing, and Jody cycled an Archfiend. A bit of a concern, I think, on Aaron's side is now with 2 Archfiends in the graveyard, if Jody makes a Living End, it's not going to matter that Aaron gets all these creatures back.
If he's able to cycle things after the fact, that
Right.
makes it so that they're not able to connect.
Jody adds also a Desert Ceradon to the graveyard. His graveyard now very powerful. Powerful enough that I think an end step Violent Outburst might just be a lethal swing. We're getting very close to it.
And you might even see it with these attackers here. You know,
Sure.
Jody knows how many lightning bolts Barich presented in game 2. That was a very relevant part of the game.
He does not want to be caught unaware. Will he go to 10? He's looking at a Violent Outburst in his hand.
And those Street Wraiths, they're just face up on the table. Depending on what Jody has available to trigger these Archfiends out of the graveyard, once they come back on the battlefield, he has to be mindful of that potential damage.
Really depends how many further cycling cards are in Jody's hand. He has at least 2 more lands. I believe 3 more lands in hand. And a living end. So I don't think he's going to cast Violent Outburst. But I don't think Jody has any way to cycle yet.
The deck is pretty long on that effect.
Right.
But, yeah.
So, no damage. 2 Street Wraiths into play for Aaron. That is unless a Fairy Macabre is around.
Ooh,
And it is. Okay.
That's a big deal.
So, Aaron will lose his board. Jody will get a board. Jody's board's quite big.
And with that damage not coming across, with those Street Wraiths gone, it means these lightning bolts in Barich's hand, not good for much of anything.
So looking at Jody's side, he has 12 power in the air, 3 more that's unblockable. So we'll say as far he has 15 unblockable power, I think is fair. And Aaron picks up the cards. He can't do anything about that.
Yeah, there's just more than enough being presented there.
Shakes the hand, and Jody Keith improves to 3-0. Both now they're off buys. He's